10 Tampa Bay is taking a deeper dive into affordable housing. Throughout the month here, we've been looking into the crisis and its impact on Tampa Bay.
And tonight, we're looking into the impact on another community, our military stationed at MacDill Air Force Base, but not necessarily able to both work and live there.
We started in Texas, and then we went to Oklahoma.
For the Lovedahl family,
And then we went to England.
home is where the Air Force sends them.
And then Florida.
You guys are kind of seasoned at the moving.
We are.
So you said 17 years, what?
17 years, 9 moves.
And how many kids?
4.
With 4 kids spanning kindergarten to high school, they aren't always guaranteed military housing.
It varies if you're living on base or off base. What's kind of the major deciding factor for you guys?
The major factor is, one, if they have a house big enough for us.
On MacDill Air Force Base, there are 572 homes owned and operated by a private housing company.
They pretty much told us, like, yeah, you'll probably leave here before you get offered a house.
That depends on factors like the size of the house you need, a service member's rank. When there are more families than homes, there's a wait list, anywhere from 30 days to 24 months.
So we bought far out because there was nothing, like we can't afford $1 million home in Tampa.
When families either choose to or have to live off base as they wait for housing, the government provides BAH, Basic Allowance for Housing. The amount depends on factors like rank, number of dependents, and zip code.
Housing allowance is $27.95, I think.
Army spouse Jesse Britt says they prefer to live off base, but ended up priced out in Tampa.
It was $800 they were raising the rent each month.
So what'd you do?
We came and put our name on the housing wait list here on base.
People are shocked when they get here.
Executive Director of Blue Star Families, Susie Malloy.
Military pay is the same across the United States. That's where BAH comes into effect. The problem is BAH is always behind the power curve, and especially with the huge increases that happened in housing in 2022 and 2023, the BAH has just not kept up tempo.
Blue Star Families is calling on the Department of Defense to increase the housing allowance back to a 100% cost of living match. Right now, it's 95%.
That 5% is an unfair disadvantage to our youngest enlisted families in high-cost areas of living, like Tampa Bay region.
Colonel Adam Bingham commands the 6th Air Refueling Wing and MacDill Air Force Base.
On average, regardless of rank, in the 2 years that I've been here, we've been able to get that base allowance for housing increased by, on average, 30% per member. And we're hoping that it continues because it probably needs to.
We will live on base.
For families who live on MacDill, there is no allowance. Housing and utility costs are taken care of. Families don't have a commute. There's a grocery store, school. Kids have more freedom. The challenge, getting in.
Are there conversations about building more housing on MacDill?
So there certainly has been conversations, because I personally had those conversations early on. When I look at 572 houses at basically 100% occupancy rate with 500 families on the wait list, I mean, just basic economics would tell you that if you build more houses, they will surely be filled. And so I took those conversations and said, hey, you know, what's the opportunity there as a Department of Defense that we could build more houses at MacDill? You know, everything is a trade-off, and it's about priorities, and it's about, you know, what can we do? And right now, that's just not something that the Department of Defense is willing to move out on.
For military families, it comes down to priorities and choices. For the Lovedahl family, costs and commutes became too much. They sold their home and spent just a week on the wait list.
Do my number 2.
It took a little longer for the Brits, but they're in. And when they do finally get a choice as to where they'll move,
I do love Tampa, though. I will say this is definitely on the retirement checklist.
Of course, MacDill and Tampa Bay are not alone in this for the Department of Defense. About 2/3 of military service members and their families do not live on military bases. According to the Pentagon, covering 100% of housing costs for all troops would cost the DoD $1 billion every year.